What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today's video, we're going to be talking about Captain Marvel number 23 by Kelly Thompson and Lee Garbett. And in this video, we are going to take a long look at the children who have survived this cataclysm that happened sometime in the future of the Marvel timeline that caused most of the Earth's population, as well as many of Marvel Comics' greatest and mightiest heroes, to die. Not only are we going to be taking a look at the children who have grown to become some of the most powerful heroes currently in the Marvel Comics universe, but we're also going to take a moment to point out why one of them is the daughter of one of the most powerful heroes in all of Marvel Comics, Monica Rambeau. We're going to talk about all that and more right now, but first, wash your damn hands and let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple eyes. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Before we get started, if you want to see more awesome comic book videos like this one, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click.
In this issue, Luke Cage, who is supposed to be dead in the year 2052, does somehow miraculously show up on the doorstep of the underground resistance. And it is one of those situations that is kind of harrowing because you must remember that, yes, Danielle Cage is still alive, and seeing her father alive, which is something that she knows shouldn't be a thing, it is something that is going to cause some problems for the underground as it goes along, because Luke Cage lets them know that they are to meet with Uwe, who is this new threat that has popped up in this new The End timeline. And for all intents and purposes, as far as Captain Marvel and anyone else can tell, Luke Cage is very much not resurrected. He is being remote piloted somehow. So it has become incumbent upon Captain Marvel and the rest of the crew to mount up and get their biggest and heaviest hitters together so that they can go and take down Uwe, just in case he decides to get out of pocket. Now, a lot of the usual suspects that we've come to talk about since this whole thing began back with Captain Marvel The End earlier this year, we know that we're going to see Hazmat. We know we're going to see Phantom X5, Sora, who is the daughter of both X-Men Forge and Quanon. We know that we will see Molly Hayes, one of the former Runaways. We'll see Katie Barton, who is the daughter of both Hawkeye and Black Widow. We'll of course see Irene LeBeau, who is also known as Rogue and is, as you might guess, the daughter of both Rogue and Gambit. We will also see Johnny Watts, aka Fuse. We will also see Jerry Drew, aka the Spider, who is the daughter of Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman. We'll also see Jeff, the cute little land shark. And of course, I mentioned Danny Cage earlier, who of course is the daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. And we will also see Ellie Phimister, aka Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who simply goes by Negasonic now. And looking a lot closer to her Deadpool live-action movie counterpart, played by Brianna Hildebrand. And of course, Emma Frost is also going to be tagging along for the ride. Now, where we're going to start getting into some really interesting stuff is the fact that in the last video, I talked about the fact that I felt that Carol Rhodes, a character that we were introduced to, who is the daughter of War Machine, I said that in that last video I did for Captain Marvel that I felt Carol Rhodes' mother had to be Monica Rambeau. It makes too much sense. And guess what? I'm still saying the same thing now. I believe unequivocally that whatever happened between Rhodey and Carol, and a lot of the clues are kind of pointing in the direction of the fact that Carol was just not around. Fuse brings up the fact that Carol was supposedly, according to Abigail Brand, that she had been caught in some kind of unexpected wormhole, and that no one really pressed her about what that actually meant. All we know is that at some point in the Marvel Comics universe, aliens attacked from out of nowhere, and the Avengers weren't ready. The strongest and mightiest of the Avengers could not go toe-to-toe with them. These creatures were so powerful and so potent that whatever was going on, it knocked everybody on their ass, and Kate Bishop was one of the first to die from it. We don't even really know if these are actually aliens. All we know is that whatever there are, they're mega powerful. They were able to kill not just Kate Bishop, but they also killed Thor. And of course, the massive amounts of radiation from when all the bombs were put off because all of the governments of the world couldn't help but nuke the entire site and didn't even have the temerity to do it from orbit. They basically nuked the entire Earth to get rid of the threat and ultimately wound up irradiating everything to where only characters like Jessica Drew could really bear the radioactive brunt long enough to actually be able to do any reconnaissance out in the world to try to find resources and food for people to be able to nourish themselves. But even eventually, her resistance to radioactivity ultimately failed her in the end because it was just too much, which leads to why she's in such frail shape now. We also learned that the same radioactivity took Magneto's life, who in the end, he helped build the underground resistance facility that they could live in. And while all this was going on, Armor kept her shield, a ginormous shield, over the area where Magneto was building. She kept it over him for roughly a year straight without stopping. So to put it plainly, yeah, this threat was Omega level in some way. And Fuse even says they don't even really know if they were actually aliens. It's just the only thing they could call them. And over time, as more and more losses were suffered, certain characters just started linking up because they thought that it was over. They thought that this might just be their last days. And this is, of course, when we see Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff starting to hit it off. We also see a scene at a dinner where one could almost guess that we're looking at a picture of Storm and maybe possibly Prince Namor hugged up and buddy-buddy. So it stands to reason that we may see some other things that might strike us as odd. But the reason why I think that Carol Rhodes is possibly the daughter of Monica Rambeau is because Fuse said that unlikely alliances were made, unlikely relationships started popping up, and some even more likely. The thing that makes this interesting is the fact that Carol Rhodes has the ability to manipulate and bend light around her, which is something that is an ability of Monica Rambeau's. Monica Rambeau has the capability to manipulate all facets of the electromagnetic spectrum and even some other spectrums of energy that haven't even been tapped into yet. She has been able to tap into not only gamma energy, but she's been able to tap into cosmic energy, microwaves, X-rays, you name it, she can tap into it. Now, we don't know if Carol Rhodes has this exact ability, but I do find it kind of funny, the fact that we have this character in Carol Rhodes who, up until this point, has not really been all that explored yet. We really have only seen her with the ability to turn invisible. But when Carol talks to this character, and you can tell it's an uncomfortable conversation because Carol is having to cope with the idea that Rhodey is going to have a child at some point in the future that is not hers, but is named after her. But one of the things you can tell about Carol Rhodes is that she takes after her father and her mother in a lot of respects, even going down to looking at how she responds to when Carol wants her to do some invisible reconnaissance, knowing exactly what Captain Marvel was about to ask of her and simply just replying that I come from good stock, and not even really questioning the order, something that Rhodey would pretty much do. When you think about who Monica Rambeau is as a character, Monica Rambeau was the second Captain Marvel and the first female Captain Marvel, and by proxy of that, the first black Captain Marvel and first black female Captain Marvel. And if you include the old Fawcett Comics Captain Marvel, she would be the third Captain Marvel overall, but that's neither here nor there. And here's the funny thing about all this. Carol is not even the only daughter that I find very interesting in all this. The other one that I find incredibly interesting is Bridget. You see, Bridget is another unique kid in all this because Bridget is the daughter of Thor. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, Thor didn't have a daughter, because what we typically think about are the goddesses of thunder, who are the granddaughters of Thor, and they are all the daughters of Woden, who is Thor's son. However, in this particular timeline, at least as far as we're aware, Woden has not been born, and he had a daughter instead named Bridget, who seems to be the one who is working the forges to try and build weapons for the Resistance, and doesn't seem very interested in going out and venturing amongst the other crew because deep down, even though she won't say it, she feels unworthy. Mjolnir won't come to her. Mjolnir will not work for her, and she has created her own hammer of sorts to help her in combat. She doesn't feel like she's a hero, and more importantly, she seems to have about roughly the same attitude as her father, only a bit more brash. She actually reminds me a lot of Frigg from the Goddesses of Thunder, maybe even a touch of She-Hulk. So part of me kind of wonders, maybe this is the daughter of Thor and She-Hulk, because we know they were or are, dating. They were, bumping uglies and whatnot for a little bit. And part of me wondered if that was the case. The thing that I do kind of want to read a little bit more deep into is the fact that when we meet Uwe by the end of this book, he is very much not a demonic figure like what was kind of suggested in the previous issue. He is in fact an Atlantean. And based on the images we saw earlier of Storm hugged up with a very Namor looking character, part of me kind of wanted to think that maybe he would be some kind of Wakandan Atlantean hybrid, as we've seen in the Black Panther Black to the Future story arc that was hinted at in a possible alternate future timeline. But that's not the case. He just looks like Namor, but with a lot more earrings, and seems to have Namor's same penchant for letting his taco meat hang out. And whatever's going on, they call it New Atlantis. Doesn't really seem like that much of a threatening entity, but something tells me that this isn't exactly everything that we think it is. Something tells me there's something more sinister going on beneath the surface, and I'm pretty sure Carol Rhodes is going to discover what that is, considering the fact that no one knows that she's there. She's invisible, because by the time that Uwe introduces himself, Carol Rhodes has already gone invisible and has snuck off to do some snooping around. But anyways, I really dug this issue, and I thought it was really interesting to see some of these characters introduced. Some characters who were old that we already knew, some characters we had no clue existed, and of course some characters that we heard the names of but didn't exactly know who they were, and then even more importantly, a character that we knew who they were but we don't really know where they come from. But anyways, let me know what you think about your theories about Carol Rhodes, Bridget, Uwe, all that stuff. Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in $1, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra!